This is The Toss-Up, where an expert-line panel dissects the hottest stories within the world of sports. From some of the nation's strongest college programs right here in Bloomington to the games and moments that capture the world's attention. It's all right here on The Toss-Up. Before the season, we talked about whether or not the Indiana women's basketball team could be even better this year without Tyra Buss and Amanda Cahill. It's only December, but so far, the answer is yes. Despite learning and adjusting on the fly with new faces everywhere, the team is 8-0 fresh off a trouncing of undefeated Butler, and the pieces are starting to be put together. Ali Patberg has stepped up into the leadership role at point guard, Brenna Wise hasn't missed a beat, and Jalen Penn has made some big shots too. I could keep going, but I would be name-dropping about everyone on the roster because everyone has contributed. Who knows where the season will end up for the Hoosiers? But for now, everything is trending upward. Hi, everybody. This is The Toss-Up. My name is Michael Dugan. Joining me on the panel this week, we have a duo of IUS TV women's basketball beat reporters, Griffin Gonzalez and Tamar Scher, and the IDS women's basketball beat reporter, Stefan Krajcnik. Thank you guys for joining me. First question, Griffin, we'll go to you first. How important is Ali Patberg right now? Because she has been dominant.
When you lose a player like Tyra Buss, automatically the person who fills that role, and we had discussions about who would it be, whether it be Bindu or Ali, and it's so important that you fill that role to the best of your ability. Ali Patberg has done that and then 10 times plus that. Her role has some people even questioning, is she better than Tyra Buss, which is a tough comparison. But so far, I'm siding on the side of yes, because just the impact that she's made already on this team, and she's, 8 games in as a transfer? It's been phenomenal. So she is so crucial to the success of this IU women's basketball team.
And you're also talking on the court leadership. She can shoot, she can assist, she can rebound, she can do it all. But what's really important is how she is off the court. And when we're interviewing the other teammates of hers, they are only propping her up and saying how she really makes it feel like a family. And that addition's incredible for a first year. Yeah,
and it's kind of impressive to see how she's bonded with Coach Moore so early in the season. I mean, Moore likes to push the pace. She likes to do it with Tyra at point guard, and it's clear that Ali has stepped right in and been able to do that. I mean, their fast break is so efficient, looks so smooth when Ali's leading the way, coming off a stop on defense. So you got to think just the way she fits in with this coaching staff is a really good fit for her, and probably why she came here when she made the transfer from Notre Dame. And I would also side with you, Griffin, on saying that she is better than Tyra. Obviously, coming in as a redshirt junior in the transfer year, she's not going to be able to break the records that Tyra had all 4 years here, but just kind of watching her compared to watching Tyra last year, I feel like Ali's a little more athletic and kind of can push the court even a little bit faster than Tyra did. So it's a hard comparison to make, and it's definitely no disrespect to Tyra. What she did for the program is amazing, but I think Ali, just as a pure athlete and basketball player, is a little bit better, and she's fit perfectly into the role with IU.
No disrespect to Tyra at all. The program wouldn't be anywhere near where it is right now without her. But outside of Ali Patberg, Stefan, back to you. Who else has really clicked?
Yeah, I think Bindu has really clicked. Bindu Yanni. She kind of started the year off coming off an injury that slowed her down in the first few games. You could see that she wasn't the player that she was at the end of last season. But defensively, the last few games, I mean, she has been completely shut down. She's going against the opposing team's best scorer frequently, if not every game. So I think what she's been able to do on the defensive side, as I mentioned earlier, Moore likes to push the pace. With her on defense, they can get good stops, get good rebounds, push on the fast break. And then, Bindu being a guard, she can also, if Ali's out or if Jalen's not in the game, Bindu can also push the pace too. So I think overall, as the season has progressed and Bendu's gotten healthier, she's really started to click and could be huge for this team down the road.
I would say that would have to be Brenna Wise for me. I agree with Bindu, but Brenna and Patberg has this vibe going. A lot of people are also saying, taking it back to last year, that they could be like Tyra and Amanda. So Brenna really, she has this smartness on the court that all the players are intelligent on the court and know how to think fast, but she's one that I can tell what she's thinking when she's on the court. She goes in for the rebound. She's hard, but at the same time, she really thinks around the three-point to see what the best move is.
Outside of Patberg, who's clicked well, Can I say Terry Morin? I mean, and her game planning has been phenomenal this season. She has a team of players that has more talent than I think this women's team has seen in a long time. But there's one thing this team doesn't have, and it's selfishness. Game in, game out, you're going to have a different high-scoring player every single week, and it's basketball being played at its purest form. You have spread scoring. I mean, last night I think they had 3 players scoring double figures, and I think that's the lowest it's been since the first few games of the season. Usually that's 4 or 5, and that's due to injuries as well. But I think just overall this team is doing such a good job of sharing the basketball with such a lack of selfishness. And that's a big reason why they're having so much success early. It's going to be why they have success later on. Because when you don't have a one player who can dominate, teams are going to struggle defending you because they don't know who your go-to person is going to be. Last night, they were expecting it to be Pat Berg. It was Brenna Wise. She had 22. The other game against UCLA, it was Jalen Penn. Then before that, it was Pat Berg. So they're just going to keep rotating, keep having players score major buckets, and you got to love what you're seeing from this women's team right now.
Why isn't Pat Berger like peanut butter and jelly right now? I mean, you could tell last year when they were redshirting on the bench, they were just their energy on the bench was tremendous.
I mean, they frequently refer to
now.
themselves as sisters. They don't even refer to themselves as teammates anymore. So I think you could see that last year they really were able to build a bond together.
You can see it in the press conferences too, just the way they answer their questions.
Yeah.
It's like they're so in sync with one another.
Yeah, the other day we asked Brenna how or against Butler, we asked like what she was doing well, and Pat Berg said that she was like, Brenna never has a bad day. Like they just always have each other's back. It's crazy.
Family. That's all I can say. It's family.
And it shows on and off the court, exactly like you guys just said. Griffin, right to you. What's one thing, I know they've got a lot of things going right now, but what's one thing that's not going as well as expected, or one thing that could haunt them down the road?
I think it's three-point shooting. I think, you're going to get into the Big Ten play. Right now you're kind of playing teams that aren't as big as you, aren't as strong as you. That's going to change when you get to the Big Ten. When you're having to play teams like Maryland and Minnesota constantly and Michigan State. For that reason, they need to get better at shooting three. I believe they shot 21% last night. When you get to the middle of February, that's not going to get the job done in the Big Ten. You need to be shooting the three more effectively. It's not that they can't. They definitely can. You have Brenna Wise who can really stretch the floor. You have Pat Berg who can shoot lights out. You have Jalen Penn who can hit clutch shots as she did in UCLA. So there's people who can shoot threes. I think it's not about shooting three. It's about shooting three at the right time and hitting it. And that was a struggle for them last night against Butler. So I'd like to see those numbers improve a little bit as the season goes on.
And focusing on the offensive end, they're great at defense, but what they're lacking, they have way too many turnovers. And after every single game, Morin talks about how she wants to see a decrease in turnovers and ball handling. It comes down to the fundamentals. They need to be able to control the ball on offense. I saw Jalen Penn a couple times last night against Butler, losing the ball, falling. That was due to their hard defense as well. But they really have to come together with their fundamentals and make sure they limit their turnovers.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to repeat what she said, but I would also agree that turnovers are definitely the biggest deal. Every press conference, it seems like Terry Moore is referring to how bad they were doing in terms of handling the ball. And yesterday, after the Butler defeat, Pat Berg straight up said, we're being careless, we're not taking care of the ball. So as good as opposing teams' defenses are, you got to give credit to them. A lot of it's just sloppy turnovers. I mean, passes just going over players' heads that as the season goes on, you feel like the team will build more chemistry, will get a little smoother, those passes will be a little cleaner. And you can expect that from a team that likes to push the ball. I mean, when you're moving so fast, you can expect a bad pass or ball to go out of bounds or go off of someone's foot. That's expected, but Terry likes to use that 15 turnover mark, which in itself is 15 turnovers I would think is a lot. But getting below that mark right now, I think, should be the goal for the team each game. And then as the season progresses, you can get less and less.
Now, Stefan, we'll start with you. They've had a couple of big games over the last week at UCLA and Butler. But what are some of the big games that they should have marked on their calendars over the next few weeks? Yeah,
obviously the Puerto Rico Classic will be a little tough just because when a team's going like that, you're playing consecutive nights at a stretch, playing against 3 teams that you don't really know, 3 non-conference teams. You're going to be in Puerto Rico. I mean, that's just a tough environment to get wins, even if they're supposed to beat those teams. But I would say when they come back, go on the road and face Illinois to open Big Ten play. Illinois is not the strongest team, but any Big Ten game on the road is a win you want to pick up because that just looks well on the resume at the end of the year, and you also don't want to have a bad loss on your resume. So they're going to have to kind of come back from the Puerto Rico trip, be able to rebound well, and if they could pick up a win at Illinois to start Big Ten play, I think that would bode well for them the rest of the season.
Right, I was going to say Illinois as well. Illinois, I believe, is 6-2 right now with their out-of-conference play. So we do have an advantage at that point, but it's still that Big Ten jitters. They didn't advance far in the Big Ten championship tournament last year. So I really think that's going to be a struggle for them, and where they're going to show their biggest strides is when they're playing Big Ten teams.
You have 5 games left, all of which that are winnable before you get to that Big Ten play. I think you got to finish undefeated here. If you can go into the Big Ten play with an undefeated non-conference schedule, that's just such a boost to your season, and that's going to be really hard for a selection committee in March to ignore. That being said, you come into Big Ten, you also have, not the best teams in the Big Ten. You have a lot of mid to lower teams in the Big Ten coming in your first 6 games out. So if that Indiana team can start 5 games here before the Big Ten play, win all 5 of them, then move on to Big Ten play and win the first 3 or 4 of those, this is a team that, 1, will most likely be ranked, but 2, has an argument of why can't this team win the Big Ten this year? And if they do that, they're going to really prove to a lot of people just how good they are this year.
If they can enter conference play undefeated, forget making the tournament. Go make the tournament, get a top 5 seed, and compete for a Big Ten title. That would absolutely change expectations before conference play even begins. We're going to cut to break here for a second, but coming up after the break, our panel will talk about the team's ceiling, we'll do our lightning round, and more. So stick with us. Welcome back to the Toss-Up. Before we dive deeper into the IU women's hoop season, let's go to Dylan Wallace at the Media Wall. Dylan?
Who knew that after losing 2 prolific players in Tyra Buss and Amanda Cahill, that women's basketball would start the season 8-0? Coach Terry Morin said after the Butler game that she isn't surprised at all by the team's success. So, what has made them so successful? Well, a lot of things, but the backcourt is certainly one of them. We knew the growth from year 1 to year 2 would be there for guards Jalen Penn and Ben Duyani. But we didn't know how Allie Patberg would fill the void of the all-time leading scorer in program history. After being able to watch Buss for 1 year, Patberg has slid perfectly into the point guard position this season. She's averaging 17.5 points per game, along with 7 rebounds and 4.5 assists. She's shooting an efficient 47% from the field and is constantly taking control of the offense when she needs to. Patberg can speed up the tempo when necessary, but can also set up the team's half-court offense or be the go-to when the shot clock is running down. No matter what stat she is filling up on a particular night, she has been everything and more for IU this season. As the Hoosiers try to maintain the nation's longest active win streak, Patberg will continue to be the power pushing them in the point guard position. Back to you, Michael.
Thanks, Dylan. All right, everyone, it's time for Make Your Case. The rules are simple. I'm going to give you a statement. You tell me which side of that statement you lean on, and you make your case for it. Stefan, we'll start with you. Make your case that this team has not peaked yet.
Oh, I mean, there's so much room left for this team simply because of the turnovers. I mean, we were just talking about it, losing to Butler by 20 points and having beating Butler by 20 points and having 18 turnovers. You got to think if they had, let's say, 5 less turnovers, they might win that game by 30 or 40, and that's a good undefeated Butler team that came in Assembly Hall last night. So I think when you look at the turnovers and you see how much potential is still left in offense, you got to think that this is definitely not their peak. And going into Big Ten play, if they can clean that up, who's to say that they can go out and win the Big Ten?
And there is no question that this team is cohesive. They're a family, like we were saying, but they're so young. They've only played 8 games together that they've won, plus the exhibition, but they have such big opportunities for them to really grow together as a team and improve, and they're not done yet.
Their biggest Achilles heel right now is the schedule. Their schedule is not the toughest, and they've had a few opponents that have been rather easy. UCLA was supposed to be a challenge. UCLA has had early season struggles. So, yes and no. I do think this team is playing very well right now, but do I think they've peaked? Not yet, because we haven't seen them play to the level of competition they will have to, either in the Big Ten or in the tournament. And I think when we see a team after a few rounds with Minnesota or Maryland or Michigan State, then we will really know whether or not this team has peaked, because we can see a lot more out of them, I think.
This is a tough one. So if you can't do it, you could say the other way around, but make your case why Allie Patberg is not the MVP of this team.
It's tough.
It's very tough.
It's
very tough.
But I'm going to come in here and say it's actually the role players, because it is really tough to be on a team where you have one star who everyone wants to focus on when she's getting Big Ten Honors Roll awards and she's taking over for Tyra Buss. It's really hard to not get jealous of that spotlight, but there's been no signs of that at all. This is a team that has continued to stay focused, continue to stay on their game plan, and you see Allie Patberg's really cheering that up. She is not wanting to take more shots than she has. Her character has not changed. She is still an unselfish point guard who wants to distribute the ball and wants to be an on-court coach, and you're seeing that night in and night out. So I'm going to go MVP of the team right now is really the team overall. No me in that either. I saw that. The team overall is getting my MVP vote.
That's hard to say. I really think, has honed into the MVP role when she is never selfish on and off the court. She shares the ball, and even when she's in press conference after games, she's always talking about her partner, Brenna, sitting right next to her. She's never talking about herself. I asked her, I said, what impact did you have on this team? And she said, well, it's the team as a whole. They build me up. They support me. An MVP is a team focuser, and that's what she is.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to go against Allie. I could say maybe Bendu just because what she presents on defense. But if I were to say it's not Allie, I'll go ahead and just give it to Coach Terry Moore, honestly, because Allie plays the way Terry Moore tells her to play and the way Terry Moore wants her to play. And I think you've seen on numerous occasions this year, I mean, the first game against Milwaukee, Terry drew up a great play to get Brenna Wise a shot off that ended up winning the game. Against UCLA, she said that Coach Rhett wrote up the play for Jalen to hit that three, but you got to think in practice or something, that's something that Terry Moore is taking part in. And then we also saw against Butler, I think it was about right before halftime, she called a timeout, drew up a play at the end, and it worked out perfectly. I mean, what she's been able to do with this team, I don't think she has the most athletic team. I mean, when they talked about Wake Forest and UCLA, they were saying that those teams were much more athletic than IU was, but IU was still able to pull through because I think their scheme is just so brilliant. I think Coach Terry Moore, I've heard someone call her the Brad Stevens of women's basketball. You said you've heard someone call her the Bob Knight of women's basketball. Regardless of who you want to compare her to, I think what she's done with this team is really, really impressive, and that's why I would give her the MVP award, even though she's not a player.
She certainly counts. She's more of a. I'd probably lean towards your answer over Griffin's in terms of the MVP. Griffin picked about 12 people. You're not wrong.
I mean, they can share. I guess.
Yeah, they can all share. That's how.
But that's how this team
It would be
works.
very indicative of the
Co-MVP,
season. Good save there. That was a good save. All right, I like Griffin's answer now. Stefan, back to you. Who's been the breakout player in terms relative to expectations?
Yeah, I think Alexa Goulby has been really well for the team. I know she had an ankle injury in practice the other day, so we're not really sure when she's going to be coming back. Hopefully soon for the team. But I think with Kim Royster and Lindsay Marchese maybe not being as athletic as Amanda Cahill was last year, I think Alexa really presents that. And Coach Moore has been saying that this is a blocking threat on defense that the team has really never had. I mean, she's very athletic. She can stretch the floor and shoot a three as well. So I think no one really expected her to come in this soon in her freshman year and have such an impact on the team. So hopefully she can get back healthy because I think she can be a key player down the stretch for IU.
I'm going to have to say Jalen Penn. She hit 25 points in the Wake Forest game. Her and Allie combined, that's a 55-point advantage in that game. She was unbelievable, on fire. She's always the one that has the grit and goes to the hole. Her and Bendu, I say, are the people that you can count on to drive to the hole and get very aggressive on that floor. And I think she's going to do wonders for our team. She has, and she's only a sophomore, so we have her for a while.
I'm agree with Stefan. I think Alexa Goulby has been fantastic. I think her size, her speed, her ability to block shots is something, like he said, they haven't had before. And I think you could tell last night they missed her out with that ankle injury. And coming in, she's played foreign ball, obviously, and that's always a huge attribute that I don't think people understand because they are playing, I think, Division II, Division III level competition as high schoolers. So getting to play the game over there gets you a lot stronger, a lot physical, more physical, I should say, but definitely an ability to play harder. And I think she's come in and made an impact just like that.
Yeah, and I think one thing that she could still work on is her fouls. Some of her blocks that she goes for a little sloppy and just end up getting fouls that the team doesn't need. I mean, we saw her foul out in a game earlier this season, and that's something Coach Moore has addressed. If she could just clean that up a little bit, I mean, as a freshman, that's natural to kind of have the flaws like that coming into your freshman year. But I think if she can clean that up and continue being the inside presence that she is, she'll be really big for the team.
All right, it's time for the lightning round, our final segment. Your answers have to be 10 seconds or less. Stefan, we'll start with you. The first question is, where do they stand in terms of the Big Ten race right now? I know they haven't played any conference games, but where do they stack up against some of these other teams?
Yeah, I think when you look back, when Big Ten play is all said and done, I think they'll be around the 5th, 6th best team in the Big Ten and end up being close to a top 25 team overall.
Right, I agree. I might say like 4, 5, 6, somewhere around there. They have the most recorded away game wins so far, and that big win against even UCLA really did it for them, in my opinion.
Top 5.
Okay.
That's
Top
it.
5 in the Big Ten?
Top 5.
Okay,
Top-
I thought you were thinking top 5 overall.
That is in the Big Ten?
Yeah, top 5 Big Ten.
Okay.
I was trying to keep it under 10 seconds, guys.
That was very good. A+ for that. So it never really works out this way where they reach their ceiling because injuries happen and bad nights happen. But what is their ceiling? How good can this team be if everything clicks from start to finish?
I don't think we even know. I think that's something that's still being figured out right now because this team has such potential. They have so much youth. Allie Patberg, still young as a player, considering the game she has been able to play in at the Division I level. So really, we don't know what this team's ceiling is, if there is one. So moving forward, it's just going to be exciting to watch what will happen going down the stretch.
Agreed. I don't know where the ceiling would be. They are undefeated. They have that momentum. They have so much left to give. And it would be really cool to see how they bring that all together when they go into more challenging plays. But I think that they're doing a really good job so far of not stretching their abilities.
I would say maybe like a Sweet 16 right now until they show me something more down the road. I would say that's their peak. I really don't see them going until do you think they could do more than Sweet 16?
Maybe.
Maybe. I mean,
I'm telling you,
if everything
the
were
grit.
to click, it could potentially happen. But I think right now, I mean, if they don't clean up their turnovers, I don't see them getting past many rounds in the
Right.
NCAA tournament. So until they prove to me otherwise, I'll say Sweet 16 right now is the peak.
Which if they are averaging 18 turnovers a game, Terry Morin just might cancel the season.
Might decline that tournament.
But here's the thing. I think when you have deep positions like at the guard spot and you have a deep roster overall where you can go 9 deep on any given night and you have spread scoring, those are the teams that go deep when you're playing game after game after game, day after day after day. And those are the teams that can win in March. Am I saying they're going to compete with a UConn tomorrow? Not at all. But they are showing strides that this is a team that can compete. And we haven't seen that from the women's basketball program in a while.
What's the thing they've improved on most since last season?
I would say just depth as a whole. It felt like last season you took Tyra Buss out of the equation, and this was a team that was minus 20. Now it feels we can take Allie Patberg out, put Withrow in, move pieces around, and we still have a team that can compete. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing moving forward for this team because I think, like I said, the depth is the biggest attribute that this team has going forward, and they need to use that to their advantage, especially going deep in Big Ten.
I agree. There's not one MVP of this team. Everyone contributes to make this whole that's so fantastic and that's going to prove to go forward. Also, they've recorded more wins in these 8 games than they did last year. So I think it's that cohesiveness that they're building this year that's really taking them to their advantage.
Yeah, I'll say the athleticism. I think that's really improved on. Like I said earlier, I think Allie's a little more athletic than Tyra was. I think Brenna Wise and Alexa Goulby can both stretch the floor, hit a 3 in a more athletic way than Amanda Kaler was able to do for the team last year. So I'd say what they've improved on the most has got to be athleticism.
Now, whose role individually should increase? Should we expect an increase from as the season goes on?
Yeah, pending injury, seeing how the ankle injury goes, I'll say Alexa Goulby because I think she's more athletic than Lindsay Marchese and Kim Royster, and I think she can provide something that, stretching the floor that they can't. So I think if she can come back from this ankle injury just fine, down the road we'll see a lot more playing time from her.
We haven't said this name yet, Grace Berger. She is freshman, so much potential, so much athleticism, and I think we can see a lot coming from her in these next couple of games.
I'm going to go Jalen Penn here because I think we haven't really seen her explode on a consistent basis. We saw her against Wake Forest play very well, but this is a player, guys, that we thought was going to come out and play on Tyra Buss's standards and play Tyra Buss basketball, and she just hasn't yet. And we get it. You have now a better team, a more deep team. It's kind of hard to find that role, but I'd like to see her and Kim Royster really expand as leaders on the team and leaders on the offensive side of the ball. I think we see it defensively, but frankly, I think we saw Jalen went, 0 for 5, 0 for 6 from deep last night. That's something that needs to be improved going down the stretch of the season.
Grace Berger is a great pick. Those first few games, she's looked so polished, so confident, and just extremely solid. So I'm excited to see how she can increase her role and grow. But
yeah, she's got a decent jump shot too and a 3-point shot that she hasn't really shown us yet. So I think Grace Berger has a lot of potential for the rest of the year.
All right, it's the end of the show. So what is everybody's last word? One word only on the season thus far. Stefan, you can start.
I'll say family. I think it's such a close team. They talk about it all the time, from Brenna and Allie all the way through Grace Withrow on the bench. I mean, they're all so close.
Optimistic, very optimistic of what can come.
Momentum. Terry Morin's train is rolling, and you got to get out of the way because it's coming fast.
It's not stopping.
She's a Boilermaker. I'm just saying. The train is rolling.
Oh, you had to throw that in there.
I did. I'm sorry.
It's all right. That does it for the show this week. Be sure to continue the discussion on our Twitter page at IUSTV Sports and on Facebook at IUSTV Sports. You can always give any suggestions for the show and ask any questions you might have. Toss it up and find out if we'll catch it. We'll see you next time.